Hey all, Reddit Jedi here with the best Reddit stories. Today a new post from AskReddit subreddit. Police officers of Reddit, what are you thinking when you see cases like George Floyd? Why don't we see police officers or departments come out and condemn things like this when they happen? I was on a police subreddit yesterday and most people seem to agree with you, and stressing that this is less common than the media would have us believe. It was basically boiled down to, yeah, this is bad, the media jumps on it and the police are not set up to fight a PR battle with the media. I understand that argument, but when so many people agree that what happened is wrong, wouldn't it be a good move to stand up and say, we do not condone this as an organization? It's a really bad look when they stay quiet or, as is the case most of time, back up the officer in question. It's like if there was a problem with mailmen stealing packages, I would expect the post office to fire them, have them arrested, and let the public know that it won't be tolerated. We see police unions support politicians for election, but we never see them come together to condemn this sort of thing. It's just a really bad look for all the good cops out there, and I wonder why they don't speak up more often. I appreciate that. Next though, he needs to finally address the no-knock plainclothes raid that ended up with 2 people dead and exposed HPD faking evidence and showing how crooked cops could be. Edit. I was too hasty in writing this and got the details wrong. It was the police union chief, Gamaldi, who said the line about making a list. Sorry for the misinformation. And please don't buy awards. The list guy was the police union president, Joe Gamaldi. Edit. This was after 2 residents were shot dead in a no-knock raid. But before it came out that the narcotics detective leading the raid, Gerald Goings, faked evidence that the residents were drug dealers and had a bunch of guns. From my observation, police chiefs are often mutually exclusive to police officers, especially for controversy like this. There is precedent for police chiefs coming out and condemning bad cops. What we don't see is police officers coming out to condemn bad cops, and this is the group that's more of the problem police in the US. They don't call out, report, or condemn bad cops, and often they punish those who do. Ironically, police chiefs can do little to change police culture. It has to be the police and the police union if we want any effective change. I can't speak as a police officer, but I can speak as a public employee. It's simple, I am not allowed to make statements on behalf of the government. Now, if you are asking why culture that allows things like this to happen are allowed to foster, I'll leave that to the Leos to answer. Edit. For everyone's clarification, I'm merely stating the facts, not taking a side. This is why so many people don't like cops. Their silence invalidates the bad apple argument. Edit. Feel like some PPL are confused by what I meant, maybe I used the wrong terms. What I wanted to say is that when everyone screams, all cops are pigs, etc., the opposing argument is, no, there are just bad apples, but most cops are good. And my point is, if that is true, if most cops are good and these incidents are only the result of bad apples, then they need to condemn said bapples. But when the police remain silent, it makes it seem like they are treating the cop in question as one of their own, rather than a bapple. How can there not be any police organization, chief, union, station, whatever that comes out and says, what he did was fucked up and belligerent and we condemn that? That is what they need to do to get the people on their side. I have a degree in law enforcement and work in corrections in Minnesota. My thoughts are, fuck that guy. Nobody is taught to put their knee on a guy's neck and leave it there until he passes out and dies. He may as well have had his hands around the man's neck. If I were to go off the video evidence, the officer should be arrested for murder. Correction. All of them present should be arrested for murder. Edit. They actively prevented others from intervening despite being told multiple times how serious the situation was. So yes, they all are guilty. Edit. There is a difference between what they deserve and what can be reasonable proven. I get that. Speaking about what they deserve. Would they all get the same charge? I'm assuming the idiot with his knee on the mont's neck would get a more severe charge, right? Edit. So the other men are accomplices, not accessories, which means they could face the same charge. We will see though. Did the officers who murdered the sleeping woman get charged for murder though? They shot her like 8 times while she slept after working a double as an EMT, as a first responder during the coronavirus pandemic. In other words, dropping charges against the boyfriend is not enough. This woman was murdered, and she deserves justice. Since we're tapping into the police community here, can someone please explain what, if anything, the bystanders could have done to help George Floyd? Call 911 and report police brutality. In all seriousness, what is the preventative action here, since none of the police officers on the scene, 4 of which were physically restraining him, reacted to his being murdered right in front of them? Edit. Thank you murder by modem for this link ACLU. I'm adding it to my post because I think others will appreciate it and I don't want it to get lost. Edit. In summary, some of the options proposed are below. I apologize if I omitted, misrepresented, or oversimplified anything. The bystanders in this case did many of these things and they were a voice for George when he couldn't speak for himself. Always record the incident, live streaming if possible, and inform the police they are being recorded. Involve other authorities when applicable, such as police supervisors, state police, 911, ask for supervisor and an ambulance to report immediately, ACLU, FBI. Tell the officers on site that you are involving other authorities. De-escalation. Back any crowd or bystanders away from the scene and officers, while still being able to record the incident. Have one person, preferably a white person, attempt to approach the officers as a medical professional or voice of reason to explain that it appears that medical treatment may be required and remind the officers that their best interests, career, family, reputation, etc. are to act responsibly. Create a distraction that requires the officers to release the hold, not custody, of anyone in imminent medical danger. Physically remove the threat imposed by the officers by force. This includes exercising your right to carry and discharge a gun. I think everyone agrees that this option will most likely result in physical, potentially fatal, and legal ramifications for the individuals involved unless the group of bystanders are organized enough and outnumber the officers on the scene to the extent that they can safely take control without further harm. Systemic change. Vote, local and national, for people that value human life and will implement change to protect it. This is not an anti-gun sentiment. If you value your right to carry a gun, then vote for people that support that. Be vocal in demanding justice when these incidents occur. Push for improved training, hiring practices, and accountability within the police force. I would imagine that this may also include increasing pay for the police force to attract more suitable individuals into the positions. Possibly implement a citizen-based governing body to oversee the police force and their actions. I hope there's an answer to this. My exact thought: if that cop was willing to kill one person, why think he wouldn't do something drastic to a bystander trying to help? Edit. Reading through replies, it seems there's no great answer. You either commit a crime yourself and risk the same fate, or you call the next level of police and hope it's not too late. I think this is an important place to start within reform. There needs to be immediate legal action that can be taken if you feel a police officer is threatening someone's life. Life is precious and we have to do better. I was thinking about this today when I heard the audio of him pleading for air. I would like to think I shout, "Hey man, the guy can't breathe, these off." I thought if he didn't, would I push the cop off the guy and probably get shot, at worst arrested at best, or do I watch a man die in front of me? IDK, but it's fucked up. Edit. I live in downtown LA and now there are protests blocking the 101 freeway, punishing thousands of citizens that just want to go home. They are riding on hoods of cop cars and smashing windshields. People will take any opportunity to act like jackasses. What did the people on the freeway do? If anything, this will make them unsympathetic to the cause. Edit 2. Thankfully they left peacefully and nobody else got hurt. As for the people in Minneapolis taking the opportunity to loot your local businesses, especially during a pandemic, shame on you, you are the actual jackasses. They begged, over and over, repeatedly told the officer he hadn't been moving and probably wasn't breathing. Repeatedly said how long it was. At one point the officer with the knee on his neck looks down at George's face for several seconds, which in the video it is clear to see his eyes are closed and he is out cold, if not already dead. He remains on his neck. An EMT presses his finger to George's neck and walks away, and still, he is on George's neck. Throughout the whole thing there is probably not 10 seconds of time that passes where someone doesn't either call the officer a bum for what he's doing, or beg the officer doing nothing to help, or say he isn't breathing, or ask them to stop. And he just stays there, with his knee on his neck. Okay, I'm going to put it all out there. I'm a white male, and I am always the first to take up for the officers who protect and serve our communities. Unfortunately, I watched a video last week where a young man, who was out jogging, was gunned down by a former police officer. I now see video of the same young man looking around a construction site, which is shown in an attempt to vilify him, instead of the degenerates who had no right to accost him. Now, Little more than a week, or two later, I watch on Reddit, one of the worst cases of intentional murder I have ever seen. I literally broke down in tears while watching the news this evening with my wife, while watching that psychotic person choke the life out of a nonviolent person in front of a number of witnesses. I have decided I can no longer be on the side of an authority that treats its citizens in this fashion. No one deserves what that poor gentleman had to deal with, and I fervently hope they convict the cop, and he is punished to the fullest extent of the law. I am ashamed of myself for taking up for those who would do what I can't now get out of my head. I am taking this opportunity to apologize to all minorities for my part in this, and any other action taken that demeans and dehumanizes them. This cannot be allowed to continue to happen, and I can see that now, for what it is worth. Not necessarily. The supervisor can call them and do something. I got pulled over in high school for turning without signaling. The cop asked us where we were going and then if he could search the car. The driver told them no. So they ordered us all out of the car into the cold and told us we couldn't wear our jackets because there might be weapons in them. We were going to wait for the K9 unit to come sniff the car for drugs. The driver called his mom when we first got pulled over because honestly, as black people, we are afraid of cops and feel they are a danger to us. This was in 2003, long before BLM. She called to check up on us 30 minutes later and we were still pulled over. She got busy and called back 2 hours later to ask what had happened. We told her we were still outside waiting for the K9 unit. She called the station and asked for their supervisor. The supervisor called the officers and they immediately let us go. The case you're thinking of is Rodriguez v. United States. It was ruled in 2015, so it wasn't quite that time, but it's still something all motorists should know about. Dennis Rodriguez was detained for 7 or 8 minutes before a K9 arrived in scene. According to the Supreme Court, officers can use a K9 to sniff around a car during a stop. They cannot prolong the length of the stop in order to carry that out. Ruth Bader Ginsburg delivered the ruling, stating, "The tolerable duration of police inquiries in the traffic stop context is determined by the seizure's mission to address the traffic violation that warranted the stop. Authority for the seizure thus ends when tasks tied to the traffic infraction are, or reasonably should have been, completed." TLDR, police can use a dog during a traffic stop, but not detain to wait for one. That wasn't the problem, that was the excuse to punish them for saying no to a fishing expedition. If the cops had cause to search, they would have searched the jacket and the car. K9 even being dispatched would have been questionable too. The cops figure if they make the suspect sweat it out, eventually they'll give in and give consent for search. It's the trifecta of win-win for a crooked, lazy cop. Punish those who defy them, incentivizing them to cooperate, maybe get lucky and find something criminal in the car, maybe not. But with a driver's consent to search, whatever is found is a lot less likely to get tossed out in court. Staying in service with dispatch at the same call considerably lowers the amount of work overall that you have to do, because one is not sent to call after call after call for service.